Well, today's a cloudy old cold day after a day of rain yesterday in Chaco. And I'm out here in my studio. You'll hear a dog barking over there. Nothing I can do about that. May have a little wind noise too. There's some things I just can't handle personally in my studio. So we'll just have to do the best we can. But it's cloudy and it's cold and it's kind of dreary and to be honest with you, it sort of matches my mood this morning. Because you see, the date of this little set to this morning is, by my calculation, the 80th anniversary of the Japanese Imperial Navy's attack on Pearl Harbor. Why do we do it? How utterly stupid can we get? Nobody wins a war. The true measure of the outcome of a war is who loses the least. And yet we go on generation after generation, killing or maiming untold millions and destroying irreplaceable historical properties, as well as the dwellings housing many of those lucky enough to escape death, but now are homeless and destitute. What a wonderful condition. Look, I served my country as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army, and I was willing to fight. My son, a medical doctor, served in the U.S. Navy for 25 years, including 2 tours to Afghanistan during combat. So I'm not a peacenik or a draft dodger who would not still serve if called on. But the older I get, the more I tend to question things that make little sense to me. And war is one of those things, especially now when we have the ability to threaten the very existence of mankind. Now, let's talk about weapons for a minute. The weapons used in warfare have evolved from primitive spear and bows through muskets and rifles up until World War I, quote, the war to end all wars, when a dreadful weapon was introduced which was purported to be deadly enough to make sure that wars were a thing of the past. This awful device was called a machine gun. The killing power of this lethal instrument ensured that infantry assaults over open ground was no longer possible without untenable losses. But infantry charges gave way only 23 years later to air assaults and more accurate artillery barrages from both land and sea, and horrible items like napalm bombardments and flamethrowers were introduced to wreak more and more death and destruction in World War II, culminating in the use of a device capable of destroying a large city like Nagasaki and Hiroshima in seconds. And during the time from those bombing, weapons have been developed that make the atomic bomb archaic. Fortunately, these ghastly weapons have not been used through the Korean police action, the Vietnam conflict, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Middle East, or any other skirmish, but they lie in wait, and they're inventoried by several countries, some of which can be arguably described as unstable. So the weapons of war are cocked and primed. If you stop to think about it, wars are almost always caused by one nation invading another nation. Now, how do we stop this madness? Well, I have an idea about how to stop it that is way out of the box. But I want to do a little more thinking about it, so I won't try to describe it here. I'll try to describe it next week when we get together again. I'm Jim Ritchie, and I hope to see you then.